take it. Got it! Boston wins! Two legends in basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast. NBA, some college.
Okay, it's time for the Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman, Tanguay along for the ride pod. And we are brought to you by Prizepicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prizepicks. Guys, it's great to see you. I thought we were going to be talking about the NBA Finals, but I want to kick things off with Bob because he is a fan of the New York coach. He's of the now ex-New York coach. Was on the Knicks bandwagon at the beginning of the year. But after making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, Tom Thibodeau is no longer the head coach of the Knicks, Bob. This is shocking?
No, it's not shocking. There were rumblings. I mean, I journalistic rumblings. I read the New York Post daily. The Times, of course, is not helpful because they don't do daily sports. But, that there were rumblings. It's conceivable, but I dismissed them. So I want to go ask Jeff, on a scale of 0 to 10, 1 to 10, with 1 being you were 100% sure there was no possibility, and 10 being shock, where would you put this news that you got yesterday?
Probably like a 6 or a 7. Surprising, not shocking. I don't love it, and I'm curious to hear your take on this, Bob. But I don't love it because the guy brought this franchise back to relevance and respectability and all of it, and now you're basically saying like, screw you. You got us there, and this is your reward. We're firing your ass. I don't like it. I understand some of the issues that they probably have with Thibs, but some of those issues were also because of what they did to build this team. Brunson and Towns defensively are liabilities. They wanted him to play the bench, but who are you really playing at that point? Tyler Kolek, I love, but he's not ready yet.
Well, right. I mean, the bench, McBride is as a scorer, and I've said this many times. Opening night, he kept them in the game when before the Celtics, turned it on and beat them badly. But he never built on that. I mean, but he's a scorer off the bench. Precious Achiuwa, I mean, he may have
not good enough. Not good enough.
League, but he's nobody special.
Oh.
And Mitchell Robinson, they didn't have a lot. And we saw the benefit of Mitchell Robinson during these very often during these playoffs. And as a two-headed center monster with a very different kind of player, it worked at times very nicely for them during the playoffs. But still, no, the bench wasn't anything special. All right, in general terms, they know who he is. I mean, there's no perfect guy. There's no perfect coach.
Nope.
And he got him. I mean, I'll just give you the stark numbers. The Knicks with under him won 41, then 37, 47, 50, and 51. And here's the number that I love, jumped out at me. I'm reading the Post today. I give the Post full credit for the information. Mike Vaccaro for the information. The previous 12 Knicks coaches won 1 playoff series.
Wow.
Tom Thibodeau won 5 in 5 years, and including a very successful postseason this year. All right. So the number one question. So his flaws. He's not. I won't say my way or the highway, but he's rigid.
But okay. Here's what I'll say to that. I'm going to push back on that. He is a little bit rigid, but this was probably the right group for Thibs too, because the Jalen Brunsons of the world. If you watch them at Villanova, again, I've said this on this podcast before. They were like robots. They did exactly what Jay Wright wanted them to do. They did it in pregame. You go out there and they were doing their drills exactly the same with no headphones on, none of that bullshit. Now, maybe you would say, hey, they're pros now. They're making a lot of money. You got to change. Maybe, but again, I think if there was a group that was fit for Thibs, other than a guy named Jimmy Butler who, yearns to play for Thibs again, I would say it was this group for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting point. the results were there, and so the supposition now on the behalf of James Dolan and Leon Rose is that they're going to find somebody better. Somebody's going to push them to the top. Mike Vaccaro, once again, had a very interesting analogy to Yankees of back when Buck Showalter got fired. And okay, who's you going to replace him with? Well, they had a guy in mind. It was Torrey, and you saw what resulted there. 4 out of 5 with Torrey. Is there a Torrey out there for them? I'm not so. I don't know. I mean, we're looking at the.
Let's go through that after. I want to go through some names, Gary, if we can.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, keep that in mind. But the question that I would have for Vaccaro or the article, or not necessarily what Mike was saying, but the ideology of the Knicks is this Knicks team is pretty good, but I don't see a Mariano Rivera. I don't see a Derek Jeter. I don't see that lineup. I'm sorry. I think that the Knicks got as far as they could. So the question, first of all, they beat the Celtics, which no one thought they would. Secondly, Jeff, I'll ask you, then I'll ask Bob to respond. Isn't Indiana the better team right now? Right now.
Sure, they have fewer flaws. Absolutely.
End of story. So why fire the coach?
They're better, but the problem was the Knicks beat the Celtics. So they raised the level of expectations. It was honestly probably the undoing for Thibs was beating the Celtics. If they had lost to the Celtics, he'd still have his job right now. But because they beat the Celtics and they had a chance against an Indiana team that a lot of people felt like they were better than, or certainly had a chance to beat, a 50-50 shot to beat, I think ultimately, and how that series went, especially game 1, that was probably it for Thibs.
Yeah. The victims kind of, and that's a very interesting concept, the victim of his own success, raising that bar to an expectation level. And once again, we come into, okay, who's this wonder guy that's going to take him, over the top with that group without any kind of changes within that group structure? I don't know. I don't see anybody necessarily. I know I see some.
Jeff, what do you think?
In terms of candidates?
Yeah, like what do they do now? And we know how Dolan is. I would be very surprised if they have somebody in mind.
Well, here's all right. So here are a few names, right? Initially, you're going to go to Jay Wright. Everybody's going to want Jay Wright because he coached, Brunson, Hart, Bridges, all these guys in college, and they won titles. And Jay's been retired for a few years, and I've talked to him several times. Hey, would you come out of retirement? And every single time I've talked to him, he's like, no, I have zero desire. Zero. I love what I'm doing with TV. There's no pressure. He gets to do what he wants when he wants. And he was young. Remember, he retired like 60, and everybody was shocked at that point. Obviously, this one's a little different because he has coached these guys in college. He knows them well. They're probably calling him right now. My guess is the Jalen Brunsons and the Bridges and the Harts are all calling him and saying, hey, coach, come on, man, we need you here. We need you. The thing I'll say is, and he's not Rick Pitino, okay? Jay Wright is very different than Rick Pitino. But how did it go when Rick Pitino coached Antoine Walker in college compared to coaching him in the – it is a completely different ballgame.
My source tells me that, A, if he were to come out of retirement, the next step would be divorce court.
Yeah.
All right. So that's one thing I hear. Number 2, the estimate of his current income, annual income, with this variety of sources, which include television and money from Villanova, and is approximately $5 million a year.
Yeah.
And to work
with no stress, with no
stress to work 3 months a year,
right?
Basically. It's the longest of long shots that he would extricate himself, or inject himself into the gym.
And in New York, does he really? Now, again, this is a guy who did start coaching his career at Hofstra, so he's people think he's a Philly guy.
Hofstra.
Right, but the pressure of coaching the Knicks now, where they're expecting a NBA title. Now, if you ever brought it, you'd be the hero forever. But I do not think, having
I
spoken
think
to
we
Jay
can.
Wright, I don't think he'd be in the mix.
On the shockometer, 1 to 10, Jay Wright would be an 11 plus.
Yeah.
He'd be a great NBA coach.
No.
If he was bought in, he'd be a terrific NBA coach. His temperament is, although he got a little high strung with the refs the last few years at Villanova, but other than that, his temperament is ideal, Gary. Ideal for the NBA. Let me throw a couple other names.
Go ahead.
Bob, Michael Malone was fired by Denver. He is also, I believe, a New York native. He is kind of old school, like Thibs. Would you go that route, or do you think it's too much like Thibs and, to me, go in a different manner?
Yeah, not based on everything, but on the fact that that team actually played pretty well as soon as he left for the successor. I think it's too much more of the same. I don't think that's the idea. They need to go in that some kind of a hot, cool direction, some kind of a Billy Martin, Bob Lemon, some kind of a direction and
Casey
basketball.
Jones, Bill Fitch, the king.
And that's usually what you do, right? Usually,
Jones was the ultimate
if you fire an older white dude, which is what you're doing here with Thibs, he was the oldest coach in the NBA, you're then, a lot of times, you go in the opposite direction, right? You might go with a younger black head coach or assistant coach.
I got one sitting on the bench, and I don't know much about Johnnie Bryant other than what I've been reading lately. But his name.
So he was with Cleveland this year, Bob. He went to Cleveland for a year, but he was with the Knicks and is a CAA client as well. So there's a lot of optimism that it's going to be Johnnie Bryant. He's one of the 2 finalists for Phoenix as well. Young, 39 years old, played at Utah years ago in the mid-2000s and is considered maybe a rising star. So I would say, if I'm a betting man, I'd probably go Johnnie Bryant. The other name to me that's been thrown out there, and I don't know if he'd take the job, is Ime Udoka, former Celtics head coach, who kind of turned around, as we said, flipped the Celtics, then obviously was fired for some off-the-court issues, and he's done an incredible job in Houston. So if you are Ime Udoka, do you go to New York where, again, your roster is kind of set at this point? There's not a ton of maneuvering you're going to be able to do because last I checked, Karl-Anthony Towns has a pretty hefty contract.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to trade. So you don't have a lot of draft picks because you traded them all in the Mikal Bridges deal.
Yep.
Or do you stick in Houston where you got a lot of good young players? The only thing is the West is a beast right now compared to the East.
Yeah, that's a good thing to weigh. But I think he's a big enough personality to do New York. He can handle New York.
Yep.
That's always a matter, no matter what sport we're talking about. You got to be able to handle New York. No question. Yeah. Any other incumbents could you see them prying a Ty Lue? Could you see them prying? I don't know.
I got one. Why wouldn't you go after Spo? Like, Miami is now in a rebuilding mode. Pat Riley's 80 years old. He's going to retire soon here. Why wouldn't you make a run at Erik Spoelstra at this point?
Well, we don't know what he wants.
That's the call, Jeff. That's the call.
Yes.
That's a great call. That's the call.
Wow.
Now, the question is, and we're always flying blind here, but with the contract situations and with Riley leaving the Knicks and going to Miami, would he let Spoelstra go? How would that all work?
I don't know. That part I don't know.
Right. It's a factor, but
my guess is
of any name you mentioned,
right,
the guy.
If Spo goes to Pat Riley and he says, "Hey, Pat, here's the deal, man. Like, I know you're going to retire in the next year or so, or tell me, are you going to be here for 3 more years? Because if you're going to retire in a year, let me go. Because Spo could handle New York. We know that. Easy. We know he could handle it, and he's so good. He handled Jimmy Butler in Miami. So if you can handle Jimmy, you can handle anybody. And these Knicks players are the lowest maintenance group of personalities you're going to find for the most part. I mean, they're good. Yeah, they do a podcast, Brunson and Josh Hart. That's your biggest worry, what these guys saying. But, and I'm tired. Like, this Jalen Brunson thing, I know we're not onto this right now, Gary, but, he's getting crucified right now for dribble, 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 not making people better. The only thing I'll say to that is they won. They won with that style, and they got to the point where they're at. Now, does Jalen Brunson need to take a step forward in that? Yeah, of course he does. But again, I just feel like people are crucifying Thibs and the Knicks right now, and they did exactly what New York fans needed them to do. They made him relevant. They were all at the Garden. They were out of their minds. No, they didn't go to the NBA Finals, but man, be in the mix. They're in the mix right now, and they're going to be in the mix again next year. Isn't that, I don't want to say isn't that good enough, because it's not. I understand you want to win a title, but be one of those 4 teams each year that has a chance to come out of the East and go to the NBA Finals.
I think they're in that category, but you're right. The thing about New York is that it keeps bringing, if you're involved in it, they keep throwing in your face. Your team hasn't won since 1973, and been to the finals, once in 1999, which was a shock. And that gets thrown up in the face, and it's true. I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago to me, but you just think how old you have to be to remember it vividly. Let's face it, that's 52 years. So right away you're pushing 60. To have any really honest to God, really good memory of the Knicks, winning it all in a town that still cares about basketball. What Thibs and has been able to do with this group is remind people of really what a grassroots basketball town New York is still. Although, the high school scene isn't what it once was. We know that, once upon a time it was Mecca. Well, it's not, it's long since that's gone, but it still matters. And St. John's proved, hey, look what Patino brought the crowds back to Madison Square Garden to fill for St. John's, which had fallen off the map.
Yes.
So there's 2 examples this year we've had about the latent basketball interest in New York. So it's there. And, the Garden was electric during those playoffs, for sure.
We'll get back to Bob and Jeff in a minute. Prizepicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. It's really easy to do. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks. Do you know ball? Of course you do. Of course, if you listen to us, you'll know even more, or at least that's what we think. There's a big one left, the Championship Series. The trophy is officially on the line. That means time is running out for you to put your final takes on the test. Final takes to the test on Prizepicks. The best place to cash in on your favorite sports. So Prizepicks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prizepicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. So check it out, folks. And this is how you do it. Is Halliburton going to have more or less than 25 points? SGA, will he have more or less than 10 assists? I say more than 10 assists. First game, I don't know if Halliburton has more than 25. So I'll go less there, but more with SGA. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. Now let's get back to Bob and Jeff. What New York fans don't understand is when Brunson, or they don't remember, when Brunson was signed for that amount of money, people were shocked. I mean, Bob talked about it.
Not me.
Yeah, Bob, right. Bob too. Yeah, but
no, you weren't right. You're raising your hand. You loved Brunson, but at that price, I don't know if anybody loved Brunson.
I honestly wanted Brunson coming off my bench in the team.
So
I thought he was a wonderful adjunct. I didn't ever foresee him as being the focal point of any team. I thought they overpaid him. I was happy, but obviously I was 100% wrong. Fine, it happens.
Well, my point is that unless you get LeBron James coming out of high school, or you get a player coming out of the draft this freshman year, a generational player, sometimes there's a process involved. But New York doesn't want to hear it. And this is the way I see it. Brunson goes to Dallas. He's part of the mix. He's not the guy. The Knicks, give them credit. They evaluated the guy. They brought him in. He's the guy. Okay? He does what he has to do to get them to this point. Now he has to adjust. I am not making it a comparison of Jalen Brunson to Jordan. It's the situation. Bob knows this better than anybody. When Jordan learned to get other players involved, that's when they won the championship. Brunson's not Jordan. Brunson's not Jordan. So the point is I'm with Jeff. Lay off Brunson because this is what he had to do to get him there.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Okay, so now you take the next step. Now, do you need a new coach to do that? I think that Thibs should have had the opportunity to do that. So now I'll bring this question to you, and I want to hear from both of you, and I'll start with Bob. Could anybody else have got more out of the Knicks? Because to me, at this point in time, they went as far as their roster allowed them to go.
I don't see how anybody. No, I don't think so. I don't see what you could have. The one possible that you thought they did have some success when he did change the lineup initially. We got very small sample here. Very small sample. Yeah, he took Hart out of the lineup, put Robinson in, and all that.
But what, Bob? They should have played DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet more? Like, come on. Like,
right,
what are we doing? They didn't give him anything. They did not give him enough on the bench to be able to play the bench.
Right.
Just because a guy has an occasional. I mean, I talked up this phenomenon of DeLon Wright when it happened because there's a guy, just where'd this come from kind of thing,
I love DeLon.
That's the way.
Him as a kid.
That's where it is. Where this guy, he had an aberrational moment. Fine, good. He was in the league. He deserved to be in the league. But and every once in a while, these guys have a flash, and that's fine. Yeah, and Shamet can shoot the ball, but there's a reason why he's been bound. These guys are always available. So
I mean, there's no guarantee what. When you said, who made the decision? Obviously, Dolan, he's out of his mind. But it wasn't the general manager. You think it was the president and the owner?
Oh, the general manager that was a supposition, and I subscribe to that theory. Basically, of course, because we know that Leon Rose in his other previous life was, in fact, Tom Thibodeau's agent. And so, we figured he would be proprietary to Tom Thibodeau to the end. We don't know that I can't prove that, and we don't know that. And Rose did issue the statement. He put his name on the statement, not appearing publicly, of course, because he doesn't talk to the media in public at all. But he put out a statement in which he seemed to be taking, sharing the responsibility at least. He wasn't throwing his boss under the bus or anything like that with the statement. But we're just guessing because until he comes out publicly, we personally we don't know.
Well, it's just a shame because I'm not a New York fan, but I really liked this Knicks team. I really liked the energy they brought to the playoffs. I'm pissed that the Celtics lost, but hey, I really liked watching this Knicks team. And there's no guarantee unless you add to the bench, as both of you stated, there's no guarantee the next coach does better.
No, I think it is. I'll say this. Jalen Brunson is a very, very, very smart kid, guy, whatever now. I think he'll take the next step. I do. And I think, Josh Hart's got to make threes. He couldn't make a shot in this series. Bridges is good. Was he worth what they gave up for him? Probably not. Again, Towns, liability defensively, but if you surround those guys with, and they've done a good job, right? OG can really guard. Bridges can really guard. They understood the weaknesses maybe of Brunson and Towns and surrounded them with three guys, and Mitchell Robinson, OG, and Bridges, and Hart, four guys. They can all really defend. So, I don't think they're that far off. I think they've got to make a couple, get lucky, make a couple good moves, maybe bring in a free agent who could shoot it and give him, some, maybe another guy who can defend, play Tyler Kolek, get him to where he's a good backup so you're not playing Brunson so many minutes, and Kolek can shoot the ball too, better than Campaign coming off the bench. That was a disaster when they tried to play him most of the time. So I don't know. I would say stick with this group one more year, the core, and then see. And if they take a step back and you want to then blow it up a little bit, that's fine. But, it's like Cleveland right now. people like, oh, you got to trade Darius Garland and this and that and the other. I'm like, man, Cleveland just had one of the best regular seasons of any team.
64.
Right. Like, why are you going to blow it up yet? Because they had one bad postseason. They're not built for the postseason. That's bullshit, in my opinion. Let's see what happens. Make sure it's not a one-off. You know, last I checked, they weren't very healthy in the postseason either. They had 3 guys hurt in that first series.
Right. Exactly.
For those of you listening to this show, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Celtics content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. Okay, let's get back to the guys.
No question.
So, Bob, this would be Thibs. This was Thibs' third team? Minnesota, Chicago, and New York, right?
Yeah, Chicago, Minnesota, New York. His third team. He was.
Is there a fourth team? Is there a fourth team?
This will be this is his third head. He's had 3 head coaching jobs,
right?
And each of them for 5 years, 4.5 and 5, by the way. And he also his history. He was assistant with 6 different teams.
Wow!
I didn't realize it was that many. Minnesota, San Antonio, Philly, New York, 7 years. Houston, and of course the Celtics for 3 with Doc. So well, and don't feel sorry for him in terms of the fact that he's walking away with 20 mil apparently left that they owe him.
Yeah.
But and he's 67. But you know, but he's got feelings. We think he's been accused of not having any with the team. I know that, but he is what he is. But
I like Thibs. I've gotten to know him a little bit.
Another job. Does he get another job?
Thibs. Yeah, I don't know. I would say yes. I would say, you know, for the right organization, he's a guy who, again, you know, Rick Carlisle adapted. I'm not saying Thibs is going to completely change.
Yeah.
But I think he probably has changed a little bit. And I think for the right organization, he can certainly bring you from, you know, a point where it's chaotic, right? And you know, look at what happened like in Detroit this past year. You know, you want to get that franchise back on track. Get a guy like Thibs. He's going to get it back on track. Will he win a title? Well, he's probably not going to get a job with the talent level that can win a title. But I mean, he could take you from where you're a shit show right now and make you, you know, credible, respectable, all that.
Well, you just did it.
Correct. That's right. That's right.
The
That's the definition. That's the definition of what just happened. Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, guys, we got the finals.
We do.
Bob, the floor is yours. What do you think?
I'm amused by the odds thing, but then again, you have to remember what betting is. You know, in which the people setting the odds want to attract equal action from both sides, and it's all based on public perception. And what you anticipate is the public perception. That's what odds making is trying to predict the public's perception of the event in question, and then set the odds accordingly. And the public perception is that the Pacers have no chance, relatively speaking, which I think is bull crap. I think they have a chance.
Minus 750 right now. Minus 750 for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, they're huge favorites. I think that they should be favored, but I anticipate a minimum of a 6-game nice series with some competition. I'll be surprised if it's anything less. Okay. Also, I think OKC will win because I must stick with my original prediction, or analysis, which was there were 360 win teams when the playoffs started. And if anyone other than one of those 3 won, I would consider myself to be quite very much surprised. And now there's one left, and it's the one with 68 wins. And there's no reason to think less of them than we did a month ago that I can see. No reason to think less at all. They are what we thought. So far, they appear to be what we thought they were. The team that is more than what we thought they were is their opponent. And I think they're going to put up a good fight. Okay. The other thing is that I want to get on, it's just this whole thing about ratings, and I don't understand people Now, I understand that if you've got New York and Los Angeles, you have a built-in numbers of people that are going to watch more inherently than if you've got Oklahoma City and Indiana because in Indianapolis because of the size of the TV market. That I understand that you can't control if you're the networks, right? Okay, you're lucky you get the big cities, you're going to have more people in that. But it's the other people, it's the people that aren't involved. If you're a fan of a sport, why should you care what's on the front of the jersey if the good teams are there? If you're a fan of that sport, no matter what sport we're talking about. Now, football doesn't have this problem. Whatever they've done to capture the American public has worked in terms of the fact that, the big team of the du jour is Kansas City. And people don't care, that they have no trouble adopting them as a team to watch. So the ratings are going to be bad, is the prediction. Bad by standards of, okay. And they shouldn't be that bad if you care about the game.
Well, one of the things
I think there's some very entertaining games in store for us. There have been entertaining games.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, just so if I may interject here for a minute, what we also have to realize is when you look at the ratings, and I don't know, I will look at when they come out, is how are social media numbers and digital numbers incorporated into those ratings? Because I will tell you, I think the younger generation, and I will say 30 and under, I don't think they care where the team is. Now, of course, you have your diehards, right? But, speaking for my son loves basketball. He loves SGA, and I don't think he cares where the kid plays. And I think the younger demographic, Bob, and you got to look at the digital numbers.
Okay.
I think the younger demographic is just going to watch it on their phone, and they want to see the player. Yeah. I think. Now, you're right. Like 30 plus is a guy in New York that had his New York jersey or a guy in Boston that had his Celtics jersey that won't watch.
Yeah, the casual fan. That's what you're going to lose here. You're going to lose the casual fan that might tune in because it is the Knicks or it is LeBron and the Lakers or Steph. That's what you're not going to get out of this.
Yeah. But I
think the younger numbers may surprise people. I'm saying keep an eye on the digital traffic. That's all. I could be wrong, because I could see my son walking down. I mean, Jeff knows he's got a daughter in college, walking down the hallway with a phone in his hand, watching the second quarter. I mean, I don't know how that translates to a rating. I don't know if it does. That's all.
I see some people on X talking about, you don't have star power, and that's what people want. Where's LeBron and where's Giannis and where's, and all that. I mean, I can't relate to any of that. Okay, but I have to acknowledge that mentality exists. I just
it does. But
to me, I'm anxious to see how OKC is going to play. I'm anxious to see. I like watching SGA. Indiana, I've come to appreciate Indiana player. Halliburton has been a revelation to me. And think about look at where he came from the beginning. He didn't make the All-Star game, but he didn't deserve it based on where he was playing. And then you go back to his summer where you think that Jason Tatum was trashed in the USA team.
Right.
Halliburton got the worst of it of all. He was Tatum. So, and look at where he is now. And I want to keep.
You just got to be more consistent. Again, the thing with Halliburton, I still say, especially in this series, he can't be great in game one and then be kind of a no-show in most of game two, or else Oklahoma City is going to kick their you-know-what.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we know he's capable of it. So we'll see, how he does. But OKC, as I said, that nothing's changed. We see how they win those 68 for sure. So good for them.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm taking OKC here. I'd like to see, I guess, the Pacers win it. For me, it's more about TJ McConnell for me. I've known the kid forever. And he's so
I'm a member of that fan club. You know that. And I definitely am. Although not just because I once wrote a column about his aunt, but Susie, but I love his game.
He's just, again, I keep going back to it. I think I've told you guys this when he came out of college, he called me and he's like, do you think I'm good enough to play in the league? Just like that. The realness, the authenticity about him off the court and then on the court, the same authenticity, because he plays so damn hard all the time. He plays with emotion. He is an unbelievable teammate. incredible teammate. If you listen to him talk to his teammates, he's incredible with positive energy. So, and I love Pascal Siakam. I love him. I love where he's come from, how hard he plays, and I like the style they play. And I know Bob is probably rooting for him too because of Rick Carlisle, because we never saw this Rick Carlisle coming, did we?
Oh, this is a reinvention, the greatest one since Riley reinvented himself from Showtime to Thug Ball. And Rick's going from, orthodoxy to they are the 21st century version of the Lakers Showtime. Yeah. They scored basket after basket after you scored. They will come at you, and we haven't seen that to this degree since the Showtime Lakers. That was one of their trademarks. It's a trademark of the Rick Carlisle Indiana Pacers. You score, you better get your ass back on defense.
Who would have thought?
He's coming. Who would have thought? No, which is a tribute to Rick and his adaptability. We always knew he was a smart guy.
We got to get him on after the year, Bob. That's one of them that we really need to try to get Rick on to explain when and why this happened.
Well, he obviously understands the personnel he's got. One thing I want to leave you guys with is one of the phenomenon of the postseason for me, that little takeaway tidbit. We've had, to me, an unusual amount of clinching game, series clinching routes that just home teams leaves the home fans in ecstasy. We had that last year, our last game when the Celtics blew out the Mavericks, But we've had this year 5 clinching games already, in which the margin was 30 points or more, including one of 55.
Wow.
Cleveland 138, Miami 83. But just so it's a phenomenon. And I just think there's
not a good one. Not a good one.
But for a home fan, there's nothing more delightful, delirious than your home team kicking butt.
Come on.
In the clinching game.
It's better winning on a buzzer beater. That's more delirious, and that's
better
for the fans.
We're going to agree to disagree. No. That's too much stress.
That's good though, but it's fun. You're into the game. Otherwise, at halftime, I get it. You're celebrating.
You're telling me that the highlight of the 2024 playoffs for the Boston Celtics wasn't Peyton Pritchard throwing one in from half-court buzzer in Game 5 to put him up by 117 rather than 114, that wasn't the – get out of here. People loved every second of that game.
I'm not a fan, so I can't relate to that.
Well,
You're probably right. I would rather – I'm thinking of it as a media person, and I want to watch a good ball game.
Well, I'm here as a fan because of my whole – interest in sports is derived from fandom, so not academic, studious nature stuff.
Right. Okay,
it's really too bad because 55 minutes into this show, the best part was that.
I'm trying to become more of a fan now.
Only you two could debate that.
It's hard though. It's hard. Bob, didn't you feel that way when you were getting into the business?
I'm going to answer that question for Bob Ryan. No. Bob Ryan is the one media member that has constantly said he's a fan. You have never left that perch.
Well, I'm a fan too, but I'm a fan of seeing a great game.
Yeah, but Jeff, you're a different era. I think. Bob, I'll let you talk.
Great game, but I never had any problem inwardly rooting for the Boston Celtics for the years I covered them, but then putting on the journalistic hat when the game was over to report what I just saw in the best possible way.
You did it well. Listen,
I never had any problem separating.
Yeah, you're one of the few that could do that, Bob. Most people, I don't want to hear people outwardly, I'm watching Stephen A right now with the Knicks. And it's dude, I don't want to hear you outwardly, and it's different, obviously. It's First Take and that crap, and you're a cheerleader.
Showbiz.
Yeah, I don't you didn't outwardly cheer. You were nobody ever saw you outwardly cheer.
No.
Inwardly, yes, you were rooting for him because you covered him, you knew him, and I'm the same way about some of the players. Yeah. I've just never been that way really about teams.
Well,
It's more about players.
Right.
I mean, well, anyway, I've constantly pointed out that it's the root of it for me is fandom and love it and writing, loving writing. I love to write. I love putting words together. I love, concepts and all that. So that's fine. So it was a natural career for me, naturally, that being the case. But it all started with, being a fan, and I'm still a fan but anyway, I'm telling you that I've used the word, I got hooted by some people that, oh my God, how can a guy of your age use such a naughty word? I said, it was what I'm talking about. I said, it's the greatest orgasmic experience for a fan is when your home team kicks ass in the clinching game. And I'll say it out loud.
I guess I will say this. Watch, and we can leave it on this. When I was at the Carolina Hurricanes playoff games, if they had won 10-0, yes, I would have felt a lot better than them winning 2-1. So I just can't relate yet, but maybe as I get older here, I will be able to relate as I am a fan of certain teams.
You can work
other leagues.
That's your homework assignment.
Well, we have our headline. Bob Ryan has an orgasm. All right, Jags, you've been brought to us by Prizepicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prizepicks.